Recording is on.
Hello and welcome, Inspired Podcast community. This is your new episode. My name is Caroline, and my today's guest is Ray. Martin is your last name, right? And I'm so
That's
happy
right.
that you are here and you
Thank
said
you.
yes to our interview. How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm having a great day today. Thank you. I had some lovely conversations about things I really love and care about, and those are always good days. I'm sure you know.
Ooh, it's a good day to do a
Yeah,
podcast interview. And I would love to introduce you to the audience. Of course, you are
sure.
also known as the Daily Explorer. You are an
Mm.
entrepreneur and award winning business leader dedicated to raising human consciousness. As a coach, mentor, speaker, and mindfulness teacher, you empower people to live authentically and bring more joy into the world. You are also an avid marathon runner and fundraiser committed to making a positive impact. Welcome to the Inspired Podcast, Ray Martin.
Thank you for such a lovely introduction. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it is. And my first question: what sparked your passion for raising human consciousness, and how do you integrate this into your coaching and mentoring?
Yeah, what sparked it? Well, for me, it's been something I was interested in since I was a child. I think my father had a kind of spiritual side to him, which I saw when I was a young kid, and some of the friends that he had were people that could do psychic readings and sort of things that were unusual for me to see as a child growing up in a normal sort of town. And so I was always curious and interested in those kinds of things. And then I remember as a child also asking teachers at school and other adults questions like, why are we here? What's the meaning of our lives? What's the purpose we're here for? Are we just here to eat and sleep and work, or is there a bigger reason? And then everyone just looked at me like I was completely crazy when I asked that question. I grew up in the 60s, so this wasn't something people talked about ever. And it just frustrated the hell out of me that I could never get answers to those questions, especially from people who are supposed to know, like teachers and educators. And I guess I just pursued my desire for answers to those questions until I started to meet people in my late teens who had awareness of such things, who had read spiritual books, who had been on courses to learn about self-awareness, and they would go, I can give you an answer to that question. And then I started to hang out with those people and develop my own ways of evolving my own consciousness. That's a long answer, sorry.
No, it's a good answer. So you were inspired because you had so many questions and
Yeah,
they didn't get answered. So and you found people who
yeah.
helped you to get these answers. And now I suppose you are the person giving answers to other people, right?
I don't know if I give the answers. I can share what I've learned in my own journey, and people sometimes, take that on board with great interest. But really, the main job is to create a space for someone to do their own thinking and to do their own deep reflection. And I believe the answers to these questions, now that I've lived in that world for a while, are within us. We just don't know how to access our own inner wisdom and hear that voice very easily. And so that's the journey for me, is like uncovering all the layers of noise that stop us from hearing a voice which is there constantly all the time if we can tune into it. And I was driven from quite early on when I started my career, and I was quite ambitious to make progress and get salary rises and get on the property ladder and things like this. I remember hitting a point one evening where I thought, is this all there is? Just more pay and more property and more holidays? Is that the whole? I was only 20 or something. I thought, if this is all there is to life, I'm never going to get through the next 60 years. I'm just going to get completely burnt out. So I needed to know. Yeah, definitely.
Oh, I love that you shared your awareness in about you in an early age,
Yeah.
because you're aware about burning out. Because I think it's a term, it's a word not invented not not so long ago for
No,
the.
that's right.
Mhm. I
Yeah,
think.
when you kind of become, so your energy, is not there anymore. You feel like you're just stuck in a routine that doesn't make any sense. It has no meaning, and you can't keep doing it because it feels sort of pointless. I've hit moments like that in my life, definitely. I know many people I've met have as well. But there's that can be a very dark place to be, for some people.
Yes. Wow, amazing. What would you say to these people when they asked you?
Well, I mean, there's not one thing I don't think you can say, because everyone needs to be sort of heard and understood and accepted how they are without judgment first. So I think the initial place for me to go to is always just to be there with that person, and not immediately try to help or fix or intrude in their process. But when that person's ready, and when they're open and curious and they're ready to take a step forward, I like to hold their hand and be there with them. So
sounds good. Thank you so much. Let's have a look at our next question. How do you balance your roles as an entrepreneur, mindfulness teacher, and marathon runner in your daily life?
Wow, good question. I mean, how do I balance my roles between those things? Well, currently I'm not actually signed up to run a marathon. I've run 5 in my life, and I turned 64 on my last birthday. So at the moment I'm running maybe half marathons. So, and what that means is it's a lot less demanding from a training perspective, and so not so much time is consumed from staying well. Mostly I'm exercising now for my own well-being rather than to complete races. When I was doing it before, it started because I was in Asia and I was trying to find a way to raise money in a fundraising foundation I started, because I wanted to support an elephant sanctuary in Thailand and an orphanage in Nepal. And I'd been to those places and they'd really touched my heart, and I really wanted to help. And I didn't quite know what to do. And then I just, by total chance, when I was 48, I managed to meet a guy who'd run several marathons. And when he told me about what it felt like to run a marathon, I felt really excited and really drawn to him. I said to him, could you teach me how to run a marathon? He said, yeah, if you stay here for 6 months and live here with me, I'll train you how to run a marathon. I'd never run before in my life, so it felt impossible, but I trusted him. And I started training with him. Within 12 weeks, I ran a half marathon and finished it. And then within 6 months, November 2009, I ran the New York Marathon, the first one I did. And I was able to raise $15,000 in donations. And I took that money back to Thailand, and I took some of it back to Nepal to the orphanage, and had some stuff built there for the school, and bought some stuff they needed, computers and motorbike and things like this. And it was one of the most rewarding things I've ever done. I didn't get a penny for doing it. I get all the money that was raised went to these things, and I just absolutely loved it. Caroline, I loved it.
Yes, I bet you did, because New York City, first of all, and we see it on television. I saw that, and the nature when Central Park is blooming, or I don't know the word, and it's so beautiful over there.
Oh, it is. Yeah, I remember I was there. I did the marathon in 2009, but I'd been in New York in 2007, 2 years earlier, and this was well before I had this idea. And my friend Angie, who lived there, we were walking around Central Park, and it was the weekend of the marathon. So we saw the end of the race. And she turned to me once and said, Ray, do you think you'd ever run a marathon? I said, no way, no way, no chance. I said, but if I did, it would have to be this one. But I don't think I ever will. And of course, like 18 months later, when I met Matt, and he said, why don't you run a marathon? And then he asked me, what marathon do you want to do? I said, well, actually, honestly, I'd like to do the New York Marathon, but I'll never get a place in there because it'll be too many people. He said, why don't you go in the ballot? Just give it a shot. I thought, well, okay. I put my name in the ballot. Like a week later, I had a place. The first time. And it was unheard of. It was just, I knew, it's what I call a confirmation signal from the universe that I'd made the right choice. because I think the universe gives us these very clear confirmation signals when things like this are happening.
This is so true. So that means you applied for the marathon before being trained for it?
Yeah, I had to, because it takes 6 months to get your body ready for a marathon. And you have to apply much before that in order to actually be chosen to run in the race. Yeah, for the big ones. I mean, I did the Berlin Marathon as well, which is probably the closest one to you. I did that in 2017. I did the London Marathon in 2014. And I did the Warsaw. I lived in Warsaw in Poland for about 3 years, and I did the marathon there as well.
I love capital cities, and buildings, spirit, frequencies in there. So let's have a look at our next question. Can you share a powerful transformation story from your work that highlights the impact of living authentically?
What about myself or someone else?
I think about a client of yours. How about that?
Yeah, I can. I mean, I've got loads. Let's choose one that's close to my heart, because this client actually allowed me to write this story in the book that I published, called Life Without a Tie. So this is why I'm able to tell this story. So I coached a leader, a guy called Stephen Koukouris, and I coached him for several months to help him become the leader he envisioned he could be. He was already a great leader, but he wanted to take his leadership to the next level. And so I was assigned to support him to do that, and I did, and he loved the journey that we went through, and we were with a group of people doing this. And at the end of this journey of improving leadership, he said, I've got so much from doing this. I've learned so much about myself. I'd like to find a physical challenge to apply myself to that would give me the same sense of growth and achievement that this leadership work has done. And I said, what have you got in mind? He said, well, I think I'd like to run a half marathon. Now, I knew, because I'd run a few marathons, how challenging that was, but particularly in his case, because he had a very sort of mild form of motor neurons disability, and he was, found it slightly awkward to move and walk, and I sort of felt for him that was going to be really, really tough. So I said to him, just without thinking about it, I just sort of impulsively said, well, that's a great challenge. And if you're going to do that, I think you're going to need some support around you. So why don't we get a few people to do it with us, and I'll run with you the whole way, and then we'll do it together. And he said, yeah, that would be great. Now, I wondered whether he'd said he wanted to do that as an act of bravado in front of the group, and whether or not he would actually follow through. And I kind of, a bit of me, if I'm honest, hoped he wouldn't, because it meant I'd have to go into training to run the half marathon with him. But a week later, I got a call from him, and he said, I've just signed up for the Brighton half marathon in England. And it was like the following February. I was living in Spain at the time. And I said, okay, great. I'm going to sign up today, and I'll be training every week to be ready, and you'll do the same. And we spoke every week that he was training, and we exchanged our notes and stuff. And then on the day I arrived to run with him in Brighton, and 5 or 6 other people from his cohort came. So there was a posse of 7 of us with Stephen. And, he finished that. He ran the whole race, didn't stop once, and did it in just over 2 hours. And he was like so proud of what he'd achieved. But for me, it was like even more powerful and rewarding and sense of fulfillment than anything I'd achieved on my own. The joy of actually being with him just was immense. And so that was one story that came to mind when you asked me that question.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing, because it shows when we set a goal or an intention, then we can reach it. We can make the impossible easy. Yes. When we have people around us, you talked about your client as a leader or leading person as well. He wanted to achieve a physical goal that way. And it's also about teamwork and leadership in the marathon. Thank you so much for sharing. How about your own goals and intentions? And what is one of your next projects?
My own goals and intentions. Well, probably the biggest challenge I feel I've ever taken on and manifest was the idea of writing a book. Because when I don't know if you know my story, I don't want to take too long to perhaps tell it, but in 2005 I was the CEO of a business in London, a company I'd founded, and I'd won an award for being CEO of the company, and so I was quite well known. My business partner was the woman I was married to, and one day she just came back from a meeting and said, "I'm leaving you and I'm leaving the company." It was very shocking, very sudden. It kind of ripped me in two. And at the same time that happened, more or less, my father got very ill and he passed away shortly afterwards. So within a 3 or 4 month period, I've gone from being this award-winning business leader to being out of my home, out of my marriage. My company was changing and my dad had gone. And it's all happened very, very quickly. And I was really bewildered, grief-stricken, devastated. It was a horrible period. And as a result of that, very close friends of mine said, "Why don't you take a 6-month sabbatical and reflect on what's happened, do some healing, set an intention for what you want to create next?" I thought that's a great idea. And as I was setting that up to take that 6-month sabbatical, I came across a book you might have read, Caroline, called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying by Bronnie Ware. Have you heard of it?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, she is an Australian hospice nurse. And so she only works with people in the last days of their lives. And she asks them all the same question, which is, what do you most regret about your life? And she said, I can tell you that they all say the same 5 things. I've asked thousands of people. It's always the same 5. The number one regret that people have, what do you think it would be? Can you remember what she said?
To not have laughed enough. I mean,
I think that was like, there's one in there that kind of fits that, but it's like the fourth one, the fourth regret. The top one was, I wished I'd lived my life true to myself and not the life that others expected of me. And it suddenly occurred to me that was why I'd been in so much pain for the last few years in the CEO role, because whilst I was very competent at it, it never felt like it was my life. I felt like I was living someone else's life, and it wasn't true for me. And I just soldiered on and, kind of kept my chin up and carried on. But I was never feeling completely right in that role. And when it all collapsed around me, I thought, this is life giving me a chance to reset myself and get on the right track. But what does living life true for me specifically? What does that look like and feel like? I had no idea. And so I decided to go on a kind of quest. For 6 months, I made a plan to go backpacking for 6 months in a sabbatical to get this insight and get this new wisdom. Anyway, it didn't go according to plan, Caroline. It's some things I never imagined could happen started to happen on that trip. I ended up living out of my backpack for 14 years. And in that 14-year journey, things evolved that changed my life completely. I can't probably go into them now, it'd take too long. But what happened during that period was that people started to ask me about what was happening, and I told them the story. And many of them said to me, if you ever write a book about that, I'd really love to read it. Can I give you my email address so you can email me and tell me? And every time they said that, I laughed. I said, I'm not doing this to write a book. I'm not a writer. I'm only doing it for my own healing. But once about 50 people had asked me that, I thought, oh my God, the universe wants me to write a book. So eventually in 2011, I started writing a book while I was in the journey. But I only finished the book and got it published about a year ago. So it's been out and lots of people are reading it now. So,
oh, thank you so much for sharing. Of course, where can we find you, and where can we find your book? Yes, when people reach out to you.
I can show you. I've got a copy right here. The book's called Life Without a Tie, and it's on Amazon. That's probably the easiest place to get it. But I also have my own website, lifewithoutatie.com. And if anyone wants a personally signed copy, I will do that and send it to wherever they are.
I love it. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. I didn't know, but now we know. And sorry for your loss. Back then you said 2005.
That's okay.
Yeah. And now it's time for your last thought to the audience, please.
My last thoughts. Oh
Yeah.
gosh, well, I think perhaps the greatest challenge in life is to find your own true path, and I think that's the most worthwhile pursuit that anyone can undertake. So you feel like you're really living the life that's true for you and the one that you're meant to be living, and that creates a better world for everybody, not just for you, but for all the people around you. So my encouragement would be to definitely pursue that, whatever the price.
Thank you so much. I feel blessed by our interview. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And see you in the next episode.